it is the official kickoff for the election season. Yeah, see some people? Yeah, about 20% of the crowd here is excited about that. The rest are saying, oh, no, don't remind me. I mean, it's not like we've been in an election season already. I mean, my gosh, every day for the past 2 years, it's pretty much been that way. But Labor Day historically means that the campaigns go into warp speed, knowing that their time and money has to be spent to convince undecided voters. Frankly, I've always wondered about people who are truly undecided as to what kind of America they want. What is it they are undecided about? I mean, I could just hear somebody say to his wife, say, baby, you gonna keep paying $3 or more for gas? Or would you like to pay $1.89? Are you undecided? Or can you hear some wife say to her husband, oh, darling, I just can't decide. When we pay more for our gas, we get to watch that little dial spin like a fan blade when we're filling up. And, you know, when we don't have any money left over from the fill-up, that keeps us from gorging on that wonderful gas station sushi, and that just packs on the pounds when we eat that stuff. I mean, seriously, are you undecided about the 20% increase in the cost of groceries? Maybe so. I didn't think so. I mean, it could be that not being able to afford bacon or beef has you eating a lot of tofu, even lawn clippings, just like they do in North Korea. I hope not. By the way, if you eat lawn clippings, that is the ultimate Green New Deal. There you go. Yeah. And maybe you're undecided about whether the border ought to be completely taken down. Heck, it pretty much has been anyway. I mean, if you think that nearly 20 million people from 130 countries who waltzed right in and got hotel rooms, health care, clothing, education, and even gift cards, if you think they aren't showing our nation's generosity or maybe our stupidity enough, then I guess you could be undecided about that as well. But are you really undecided about moving toward an economic system where, as Kamala Harris says, we all end up at the same place? Let me translate that for you. If you get up at 6 a.m. and you get to work by 7 and you bust your backside until 5 p.m., are you okay with getting the same wages and benefits as the guy who gets up at the crack of noon, enjoys a free lunch that you so graciously paid for, and then after his 2 p.m. nap, he'll call it a day around 4 so he can get home and enjoy a few hours playing Xbox? After all, according to Michelle Obama and Oprah, you really don't need all that stuff you have. Huh. And I sure appreciate hearing that from two women who own multiple million-dollar homes, fly everywhere in private jets, and never clip coupons for the grocery shopping. Yeah, thank you. In fact, I'm pretty sure they don't do any grocery shopping, none. So excuse me for asking, but what in the Cheerio box are you undecided about, really? I mean, the next couple of months are going to be all about you, undecided voter, all trying to convince you to make up your mind about the America you want. And forgive me for being so blunt, but I hope you don't believe the donut dust that you're going to hear on political ads about a candidate wanting to give you joy. Because whatever they give you, you're going to be paying for it. So you better make sure it is at a price that you can afford. At least there are a couple of big surprises that happened this week that may either give you some joy or it may take it away. Two prominent Democrats, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard. Well, we know how our audience comes down on this. They have officially endorsed Donald Trump. And good for them. And while neither of them agrees with Trump on every single issue, they do understand something I wish some never-Trump Republicans understood. As Franklin Graham so eloquently said, we are not voting on a Valentine. We're voting on someone who will impose policies that will shape our future. This isn't about dance moves and smiles or gender, race, or good manners. It's about policy, pure and simple. And both RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard have been on this show. And I was impressed with both of them for having a true love for an America that only had one justice system, one that protected free speech and freedom of thought, and that believed that big government colluding with big tech, big pharma, and big media was a true detriment to our liberty and way of life. Now, if folks like that aren't undecided anymore, I'm not sure you should be. But if you still are, just know that the several billion dollars about to be spent on political ads aren't designed to convince me. They're all targeted at you, the undecided voter. Of course, you could really mess the whole thing up, you know. Go ahead and decide, and do it now. And ask them to spend all those billions of dollars on things that we really could use, like border security, putting violent criminals in jail, paying down the national debt, and even feeding hungry children. I mean, it would make you look a lot smarter, and it would make our country a lot better. Well, my first guest is another victim of the corrupt Democratic Party establishment. He served 8 years in prison for corruption charges before President Donald Trump commuted his 14-year sentence. I want you to please welcome former Illinois Governor, Democrat Rod Blagojevich. Rod, you and I had the pleasure of serving together as governors during several years back in the late 90s, early 2000. What a lot of people may not understand is generally governors have a good relationship with each other, whether they're Democrat or Republican. And you and I had a good relationship. And when you were charged by people in the Obama administration, you're from Chicago, where he's from. I think all of us, whether we were Republican or not, were shocked at the charges that were brought against you, because we all scratched our head and said, if what he did was illegal, y'all better get ready for 49 other cells, because we're all going, because everyone was doing. I want you to, for our audience, explain what exactly did they come after you about?
Well, thank you very much for having me, Mike. And by the way, as you know, as former governors, you certainly made a lot of good from your time as governor. I didn't go quite as good as yours. It's very impressive, and so nice to see that you have this wonderful live audience. It all started when, on election night in November 2008 in Chicago. It was a magical night, first time America elected a black man president. And President-elect Obama was about to take the stage. Dignitaries, governors, mayors, senators, all kinds of bigwigs from Washington were there backstage. A labor leader who was close to President-elect Obama and I came up to me and said, Barack called me last night. He wants Valerie Jarrett to be the senator, wanted me to talk to you about what you want. And we discussed all those possibilities, political horse trading. They criminalized it with me. Obama went to the White House for 8 years. I went to the Big House for 8 years, 2,896 days, not that I was counting. And I think it's fair to say he had a better 8 years than me. And, you know, I joke about it, but the fact is what they did to me at the AAA level to a Democratic governor is what these weaponized, corrupt prosecutors have been doing to President Trump at the major league level. Democrats shouldn't do it to Republicans. Republicans shouldn't do it to Democrats. This is the United States of America. This isn't the Soviet Union.
No, it isn't. I saw what they did. I remember at the time, I mean, the phone calls and everything else were pretty public. And honestly, it was, as you say, political horse trading. It was not criminal, did not appear. The question has to be, what did Obama have against you? I mean, you're the governor of his home state, and clearly he sicked his Justice Department on you. What did you do to him?
Well, I was the first governor to endorse him. You know, it's kind of wish I could take that back.
I bet you do.
In fact, I remember the night, it was a Monday night, January the 8th, 2008, and you and Obama both won the Iowa caucuses. Yeah. And I remember being impressed with your speech more than his, because you pointed out that it was Elvis's birthday. And I fell in love with you at that moment when you did that, Mike.
Yes, thank you.
No, I think what Obama did was he protected himself politically. He started the whole thing. They came after me. They arrested me at 6 o'clock in the morning when my little girls were at home before school. My little one was 5 at the time. She was in bed with my wife, Patty, and I. FBI agents, SWAT team surrounding our house. I'm a sitting governor for things that eventually the appellate court reversed.
Yeah.
The so-called sale of the Senate seat was never a crime. It was what you just said, routine political log rolling. Obama made a deal that he would allow those people to do what they did to me as long as they stayed away from him. And in that sense, it's clear I made the wrong decision endorsing him.
You know, I mean, we all know, those of us who have run for office and have served in office, it's a nasty game. We all get that. Right. But when it moves beyond the political attacks and the nasty TV ads, and it becomes criminal prosecution for what I would consider a normal, may not be the prettiest thing from the public's perspective, but the old idea of, if you want a Senate seat, what are you going to do to help me? I mean, that's kind of what things work out to be. Not a criminal activity. Were you shocked when they came after you? And I mean, my gosh, not just the 6 o'clock in the morning, which is amazing to me. I mean, you're the sitting governor. They know where you are. Yes. They don't have to bring a SWAT team. They could have called your lawyer and said, we want to talk to the governor. That's not what they did.
No, they didn't. I was shocked. I was handcuffed. They had me in the back of their FBI vehicle, handcuffed. When I finally was able to get an answer, why are you doing this? And they said, you were trying to sell Barack Obama's Senate seat. And I thought it was so preposterous. And I thought, briefly and naively, that the media would see that for the absurdity of what it was. The fact is, if you were a criminal, you're a pretty stupid criminal, because how do you possibly think you're going to get away with selling the president of the United States Senate seat?
Yeah.
I was shocked by, of course, the arrest and the charges, and I was shocked by the media's unprofessionalism. I thought that they would be honest enough to recognize how absurd that was, but instead they couldn't resist the narrative, because this at the time was big news. It was international news. We had television news trucks around our home in a modest, nice neighborhood in Chicago. There were Japanese television trucks. Israeli news was in front of our house. And it was all for political conversations. Nothing happened. Yeah. It was just talk. And they failed to convict me at a first trial. And then they tried me a second time, and they did to me what they did to Trump in New York. They moved the line on the law. In other words, they custom-tailored the jury instructions to fit legal conversations, but turned them into fake crimes. That's how they get convictions now when they're determined to get you. This, again, is frightening, because this isn't just about what happened to me or what they're doing to President Trump. If they can do it to us, beware, they can do it to all of you. And this is not the land of the free and the home of the brave when they do this.
That's what people need to understand. If they can do it to you, if they can do it to President Trump, it's not that they could do it to folks like sitting in our audience. They will do it to them as soon as they do something that the government just doesn't like. We're going to take more of this conversation with Governor Blagojevich in a minute. We need to take a little break. Keith Bilbrey is going to tell us what else is on the show, and we'll be right back with the governor right after this.
Well, coming up, the McLemore Boys deliver some tips to elevate your Labor Day cookout. And later, a song for our veterans by country artist Hunter Girl. All that and more on Huckabee. Go to MikeHuckabee.com and sign up for his free newsletter, and follow @GovMikeHuckabee on X.
We are back with former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich. And Governor, just before we left, we were talking about how the federal government came after you. They lost the first trial, and they didn't walk away and say, okay, well, that didn't work out. They just kept coming. And I think a lot of people need to understand that when the federal government wants to get you, they have unlimited resources, because they have all of our money. And they can spend as much of it as they want to get their political targets. So they come after you again, and there's a limit on what we can do if we're the target to defend ourselves, to hire the attorneys. It must have been an extraordinarily expensive process for you simply to defend yourself.
Well, it was a long, hard journey. Just those two trials alone. After they failed to convict at the first trial, they dangled a light sentence if I would agree to plead guilty to some of those things that weren't crimes. 18 months would have made it easier for myself and my family. But I couldn't possibly do it for several reasons, not the least of which is I had a responsibility as a governor, like you did, to follow the rule of the law and to protect the Constitution and to people voted for you or didn't vote for you, but you can't give in to what you know is a corrupt prosecution, and they know it's corrupt. They were leveraging and playing a game of chicken with me. And so I resisted. I never imagined that the judge and the court would be so rigged. I never imagined that they could actually fix trials by using jury instructions to criminalize things that were legal. And then I never imagined that, you know, he would send me to prison for a 14-year sentence. Think about this, Mike.
14 years.
No one even accused me of taking a single penny. It was all talk on a political deal that Obama initiated and Obama started. And, you know, I was out jogging one day and I was running through the streets of Chicago, and it was back when newspapers were in boxes. You can buy one. I saw a big cover photo of me on there, and the headline was 30 to life. Feds asking 30 to life for me. Needless to say, my pace picked up for the rest of that run when I saw that. But no, they're ruthless, they're relentless, they're remorseless, and they're corrupt. And they're doing it to Trump. And again, as I said before, this is a threat to our democracy. This is KGB, Soviet-style police state politics. And this election is so important, ladies and gentlemen. You have to fight to elect Trump to save our republic.
You know, it's fascinating for me to hear you, yet another Democrat, saying, you got to vote for Trump, not because his personality is all warm and fuzzy, but because he understands the rule of law and he's been subjected to it. We were talking before that Bob McDonnell, a Republican governor from Virginia, went through the same thing. His prosecutor was Jack Smith, the same guy going after Trump. And it was also a nonsensical charge. And every governor in America looked at that case, looked at yours, and said, if that's a crime, we're all toast. Because it was the normal thing of just day-to-day political maneuvering. And it was not illegal, it was not criminal. But I want to get to the point that I think is important. You did get a commutation. Did not come from Barack Obama.
No, it did not. And I was probably one of the more fortunate of the 151,000 inmates in the federal system. Because my paperwork, that's the vernacular for my fellow inmates, they call it your paperwork, was on the desk of two presidents, Obama and President Trump. And my young daughters wrote letters to President Obama, who I knew since 1995. And they're the same age as his beautiful two young daughters. And those letters were delivered to Obama by David Axelrod. I had relationships with people who could reach the president. And he didn't, after 6.5 years there, he passed me by. He didn't do anything. 1 month later, though, I get called into the case manager's office, and they asked me to sign a waiver because the White House wants your records. Trump had been president for a month, and he was interested in seeing what he can do to try to get me out of where I was. Very interesting.
A month into office.
1 month.
Yeah.
And if I could, I said to you, Mike, I did the show Celebrity Apprentice. It was one of the best things I ever did. I never watched it. When I was governor, I was busy being governor, right?
Yeah.
And, well, he fired me, and he was right to do that. And then who'd have thought all those years later he would free me? Donald Trump's the only president in American history to have fired and freed the same guy. Even Lincoln didn't do that.
That's pretty good. You know, it is a great story, but it's a reminder that for all the talk about how Donald Trump is so partisan and that he's mean, I know other people that no one wanted to touch, and he was willing to risk a lot of criticism in giving commutations and or even pardons to people who really deserve them. And I think it speaks well of him, you know, and I'm looking at his case and I'm hoping that he can pardon himself come January. I think it would just be a delicious moment if he just did that.
Yes, exactly.
But how frustrated are you to see, and I know we've got to go, but this is the last question that's so important. How frustrating is it for you to see a party you'd given most of your adult life to that is turned into a vicious go after someone because they are your political opponent?
Well, I don't recognize today's Democratic Party. I call myself a Trumpocrat, a Democrat for Trump. It's like being a Cubs fan. You can't give it up. You're still part of that team. But this party has been hijacked by the socialists. Their tactics are Marxist. The use of the criminal justice system and other things that they do are right out of a Marxist playbook, KGB, Soviet-style politics. And so the election of Donald Trump is so much bigger than a typical presidential election because our very system's on trial right now. And I, in my opinion now, after all the years I've been in politics and the 2,897 days I spent with my homies in prison, and I was in a higher security prison. They had me in a higher prison where my home was a 6-foot by 8-foot prison cell. I went from a 50,000 square foot governor's mansion to a 6-foot by 8-foot prison cell with gangster disciples and Crips and Bloods, Sinaloa cartel drug dealers who look up to El Chapo like my daughters look up to Taylor Swift.
Wow.
There were murderers in there. 950 guys, 2% white collar, one governor, me. And I learned a lot about life. And I'll say this to anybody out there who's facing hard times and adversity and the sadness of life. So many of us look to God.
Yeah.
It was faith, hope, and love that got me through. The Bible my wife gave me, that I took with me, gave me the strength I needed.
Well, I want to say, I think your wife is a magnificent person, and I want you to give her my regards and your 2 daughters that she was able to continue to raise with you being gone for 8 horrible years. Rod, it's great to see you. Thank you for coming and being so candid and just forthright with your story. And I hope it doesn't happen to anyone else in this country. We've got to make sure this kind of stuff stops. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You can keep up with Governor Blagojevich through social media. You can visit his guest page at Huckabee.tv. Right now, Keith Bilbrey is going to tell you who's on deck next. Keith?
Well, we'll be right back with best-selling author Wendy Griffith to discuss her latest book about waiting for God's best in marriage. Then get ready for some mouth-watering grilling with the McLemore Boys. Stay tuned.
Samaritan's Purse works tirelessly to serve those who are suffering and broken. And your financial gift provides medicine, food, shelter, and so much more to those who need it the most to help recover from devastating natural disasters. I hope you'll consider giving a financial gift to Samaritan's Purse so that through you, they can continue to give much-needed help to people all over the world. Call them today, or you can visit their website by scanning the QR code right there on your screen. Thank you for opening your heart and for making a difference in Jesus' name. Well, Wendy Griffith is a longtime TV reporter, best-selling author, and the co-host of CBN's 700 Club with the late Pat Robertson. She's also co-anchor of Christian World News on CBN. But her latest bestseller, well, it's something different. It's about being a first-time bride in her 50s. It's called You Didn't Miss It, God's Best is Worth the Wait. Please give a warm welcome to Wendy Griffith. I have a feeling a lot of our folks, both here and at home, have seen you many times on television.
I hope so.
What they may not know is that it wasn't that you didn't want to be married, but Mr. Right just didn't show up all of a sudden.
I was on planes and trains, and I was at church, and I thought, well, certainly I'm going to meet him maybe at church or on some of my many travels, and it just never happened. And finally, I was already in my 50s, and I was hiking with...
By the way, you don't look like you're beyond your mid-30s, Wendy. I don't know what your secret is.
I love you. Thank you.
But it is disgusting to the rest of us who look older, but go ahead.
Well, you're so sweet. Well, finally, I'm in my early 50s, and I'm hiking with my friend Jenna, and I say, you know, when we get back, we were in Peru at the time, I said, when we get back, can you fix me up with somebody? I mean, I had just gotten to the point where, not desperate, okay, desperate, yeah. I was like, please.
Just go ahead and let me out, okay?
It is just not happening. I'm like, God, you know, I've been praying and I've been believing. And she's like, sure. And she is a lawyer, and she knew a lot of people in town, and she knew this guy Bill, and we all went out on a double date, and he was the one.
The rest is history, as they say.
He was the one. I didn't know he was the one at the time.
How long did it take you to figure it out?
All summer.
All summer?
I just thought I was having a fun summer fling, really.
Did he think of it before you did? Did he figure this out, or did it kind of happen all at the same time?
I think he did, but it took me to the end of the summer. And I was sitting with my brother, and I was going through all these photos from starting at like June until September. And by the end of this slideshow, I was like, I got to go. I got to go. And I knew that I remember the day. It was September 27th, 2017, when I knew I was in love with Bill Sussman.
How cool is that? So did you call him and say, hey, look, you better ask me to marry you?
No, but this was the good thing, is that God didn't let me know. God gave me time, because if I'm an all or nothing girl, and if I had known, he would have run for the hills. I mean, I would have scared him off. But thank God I didn't know. And that way he had to pursue me. And I think for men, that's a gift. My husband's a hunter and he's a fisherman.
Yeah.
So he's a hunter by nature. And I'm glad I didn't take that away from him.
Yeah.
So he was able to pursue me. And I think a woman's heart it opens, when you're pursued. And so, yeah, God did me that favor.
But I think it's important. Your message in the book is really about, you didn't, and I love the title, you didn't miss it. And it's that God has a different time frame for everybody. And don't say, all my friends got married when they were 23. So therefore, if I'm not married by the time I'm 25, I'm missing out on something. You didn't feel that you missed. You felt like you were waiting until God brought you what was best for you.
When I was in my late 40s, I was dating someone for about a year, and he broke my heart. And I was out walking one day after that, and I was about 47, 48, and I heard the Lord say, Wendy, you didn't miss it, and it's not too late. That was like a lifeline. That I held on to that. I wrote it in my journal. And it was a rhema word, and that's why it's the title of my book, because I was already in my late 40s. Well, then I was 52 when I met Bill, and I meet so many women and men that are way younger than I was, that think they missed it because they might already be divorced, a single mom, single dad. They've already been through heartbreak. But I felt like that needed to be the title, because it doesn't matter how old you are. I believe God gives you the desires of your heart. Because he's good. He's a good father. But in my case, I had to wait.
Now you and your husband are actually doing seminars and helping other people who may be going through something similar.
We just had our first Ready for Love singles retreat in Virginia Beach. About 100 singles from all over the country came. 3 ladies from Canada came, and all ages. We actually had 2 ladies come from Las Vegas that were 80. It was amazing. And so we had so much fun.
They might want to hurry it up. Just being honest here.
Exactly.
Might want to get on with it here.
But, the message, it was called the Ready for Love Singles, and we called it the World Tour because we were getting requests from all over the world, come here and do a singles retreat. Especially older singles want to be encouraged. They want to know. I mean, I get emails every day from somebody, I'm 60, I'm 70, I'm still believing. And, they might be widowed, but God is faithful. God was faithful, and he's no respecter. If he did it for me, he can do it for them.
It's a beautiful story. To follow Wendy Griffith on social media, to learn about her Ready for Love singles retreat, and to get her great new book, I'm holding it right here, You Didn't Miss It, go to Huckabee.tv. Now, speaking of not wanting to miss something, you don't want to miss what's still left on the show, and we have enlisted Keith Bilbrey to tell you about that right now.
And I am honored. You sure don't want to miss this. The grill is fired up, and the McLemore Boys are ready to share their tips. Then stick around for an amazing musical performance by Hunter Girl as she pays honor to our veterans right here on Huckabee. Huckabee.tv and get your very own made in the USA Huckabee mugs, t-shirts, and more.
And welcome back, everyone. I love when John McLemore and his son John return because they are the masters of meat. Now, you know their famous Masterbuilt grills and smokers and their dadgum good cookbooks. Their latest book is called Gather and Grill. That's what we're going to do. Please welcome back the McLemore Boys. Masters of meat, yeah.
Let's go!
All right. You guys have been cooking today.
Yes, sir.
And you're doing it in this brand new kind of smoker grill combination that is pretty high tech.
Yes, sir. So Masterbuilt has been known for being the innovators in the industry, and the Gravity Series grill is, for 50 years in our company, the best grill. You love to smoke, you love to grill.
Yep.
It does it all, and we're going to show folks how to do.
I've got two Masterbuilt electric smokers.
Electric smokers,
Yeah.
that's right. And this is a digitally controlled charcoal
Which
grill.
is pretty unique to be able to do that.
0 to 700 in 13 minutes from a fresh light. Takes all the guesswork out of charcoal. Fantastic products.
Amazing.
So you guys have done a tenderloin, a beef tenderloin, one of the most wonderful cuts of meat there is.
My favorite.
One of the most expensive cuts of meat there is. And you don't want to mess it up.
You do not want to mess it up. And I learned from the best. This recipe was in my first cookbook, Dadgum That's Good, where we met.
Yes, we did.
And you did the recipe with me, and I think you and I have shared a lot of different versions of doing this. And I learned from you that you need to do this recipe right, which is what we did today. So you want to walk everybody through it?
Well, the tenderloin, as we would both know, is such a great cut of meat that it doesn't need a lot of help.
It does not.
You do not want to mess it up by over-seasoning it. Let the meat speak. But what makes it work is when it's cooked right, smoked right. And you not only smoke it, but then you reverse sear it on a hot grill.
I think
That's a twist.
I think we're going to walk you through it. We were here earlier.
Yep.
And I think we got some...
I think we got some footage of you guys doing all this out
So
back.
we set the grill at 225 degrees and we seasoned it with our High Five. The McLemore Boys come out with a High Five savory rub, and it's salt, pepper, garlic, butter powder. And that, so that makes it good for steak. So we season it up, we put it on the grill, and we smoke it at 225 degrees. You put the meat probe in. Takes about an hour for it to come up to an internal temperature of about 110 degrees.
That's the Gravity Series. We put it middle rack.
Right.
Okay.
Smoke it indirect, meat probe in the centerest fatty, part of the meat. And
You go to 110 degrees,
110.
and then you pull it off.
Pull it.
That's right.
You let it rest. You always have to have patience. Let your meat rest. We do that.
That's what we say about Keith Bilbrey. Let him rest.
Let him rest.
Let him
Let
rest.
him rest.
Yeah.
So you see we got it on the cutting board. Don't cover it. Just put it out. Let it rest for about 15 minutes. Then turn that grill up to 700 degrees.
So let me
get it hot.
Quick note there.
Okay.
We smoked at 225. I want everybody to know this. 225.
Yep.
Pulled it, let it rest. While you're letting it rest, that grill, that same unit, that same grill goes from 225 to 700 in about 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That is a fast turn
Super
to get
fast.
to 700 degrees.
So then we put it back on the grill and we give it a sear so that you get that nice crust on the outside. There you go. You get a little kiss of fire, which a lot of chefs and outdoor cooks love.
Caramelizes the outside.
It caramelizes the outside. Do that for about 2 to 3 minutes on each side. Pull it again and let it rest for about 10 or 15 minutes and slice it up. And then we're going to make a comeback sauce.
Comeback sauce.
Do you know why they call it comeback?
Why do you call it the comeback sauce?
Make
We
you
want them
come
to
back
come
for more.
Oh,
And
okay.
Governor, we're going to show you this recipe. We've got 1 cup of Duke's mayonnaise, and you got to get busy. I'm not going to do this by myself.
Got to be Dukes.
So you go. You throw in 1 teaspoon of minced garlic.
Okay.
2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar.
There you go.
We're going to add in some black pepper.
Not all of that, I
Yes,
Black-
no, just we'll just pinch that in there. for you. There
Black
you go.
pepper and kosher salt to
Pinch it in.
taste.
Yep.
Yeah. And then garlic also a little bit to taste. We call for 1 tablespoon.
You blend all of that together.
Yep.
Create an amazing mayonnaise sauce, and we're going to take this beef tenderloin, which is amazing to serve as an entree, which we just did last week at the Grand Ole Opry, and served it to some amazing people at one of our charities. And then we take it, if you want to take it from an entree, you then make it into a slider. Take the comeback sauce and add it to your slider bun.
Yep.
And if you want to make it majestic, which we do, we add some maple bourbon bread and butter pickles to the sandwich.
There's another
Did you hear the audience go, ooh?
So there's a maple bourbon and a smoky barbecue.
Yes.
That we have.
A smoky barbecue, bread
is
and butter
so-
pickles.
So
Yes.
good. Yes.
Are we going to talk or are we going to eat?
We're going to eat. So you eat, and here's what I want to
try this
also
slider?
say. The one thing that John and I love to do is we do a lot of traveling. And Masterbuilt was in our family. Oh, look at John.
There you are.
Okay.
That's what I should have done.
That's the only reason I bring him out. So while they're eating, we are very privileged to be able to serve back to our military who allows us to live in the greatest country in the world. We work with Helping a Hero. We work with Wake for Warriors. And we also are brand ambassadors for the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation, raising money for young kids. And there's some video of me doing a belly flop with an 11-year-old. I can explain. We were raising money for a good cause.
He is the
belly flop
first
champion.
annual belly flop champion
And your dad is the belly flop champion?
Yes. We did it.
What an honor.
Yes. We did it.
What a big deal.
We did it.
Belly flop champion.
That's right. Yeah.
And what we love is Mount Olive, Majestic Pickles. They supplied us with everything down there for that event. Wonder Bread has been serving us, all of the food down there. Good Ranchers has this beef that we do there. And I mention those brands because it's not because we're brand ambassadors for them, folks. It's because they too give back.
Yeah. They support us
we
in all
do.
of our endeavors.
Yes.
Well, I think everybody's going to want to support what you're doing, and I'm going to support you by eating some more of this tenderloin. Hey, if you want to see all the McLemore family's Masterbuilt grills and smokers and get more great recipes, including their new book called Gather and Grill, if you go to Huckabee.tv, we will introduce you to all of these wonderful things. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll consider clicking the subscribe button below and the notification bell next to it so you don't miss any of our future videos when they go up online.